In this video, we're going to show how to write a reform file. The idea is to tell the model what reform we want it to simulate and how that reform differs from current law policy. Let's sort of go over what we're going to do here before I switch to the prompt and go through this. We're going to use an example here of a very simple reform that has only one reform provision. That provision is to lower by 1 percentage point the top tax rate beginning in 2022. So the model understands this declarative commands, but it has a very limited vocabulary. And so one of the things that the tests did was write a language words file. It's like a dictionary. It includes all the words that the model understands. So we're going to have to consult that. And we're going to have to know 1 percentage point drop. Well, that means we have to know what, under current law policy, the value of the top tax rate is in 2022. Otherwise, we don't know how to lower it by 1 percentage point. And then once we have that information in hand, we'll start our editor and write the simple JSON file that describes this reform. I'm going to try to remember to make a mistake in writing that file so we see how the model responds when it doesn't understand the reform that we're telling it to simulate. So I'm going to switch over to the command prompt. Let's clean up from the prior video, and let's begin. First of all, we need to know the word that the model understands to refer to the top tax bracket. So one of the tools that we can use sometimes you have to try a few things, but in this language words or dictionary, we can basically look for words that include this phrase in the definition, okay? So it's basically like looking up in a dictionary. So if you scan over this, you see that there's personal income tax rates applied to chargeable income below the bracket 01. Well, the rates are numbered from 1 all the way up to 12. So here we have the tax rate that applies to chargeable income between bracket 11 and 12. Well, so let's look at everything that includes 12 in the dictionary. Well, there we go. So now we see on the first line there, the bracket So now we know what these things are called. So the key thing is the word that the model understands to mean the top tax bracket is this. So I'm going to copy that. And now I'm going to start, I'm going to go to my editor. Now I use Emacs. You can be using any editor. We'll talk in class about the pros and cons of different editors and so forth and so on. So what I've done is moved into this topic 2 directory where we did our work in the previous video. I mean, once you get into the editor, you can also just simply look at the dictionary, right? Any reasonable editor has got, well, let's go to the very end. So there's only 131 lines. There's only 130 some words that the model understands. And so you could just look in the editor too. Of course, the language rules describe in just these few things the key points about how to write a JSON file. We also gave you an online link that had a nice explanation of that. So these are good references to keep in mind. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the reform file. I'm going to keep track of it. We're in topic 2, and I'm going to call it ref. There's a premium on keeping the file names short. This will become apparent if it hasn't already fairly soon. Now you notice here in the file name that I've followed my earlier recommendation of avoiding at all costs the space, but I am using the underscore key here to make it the name of the file a little more readable. So basically, all we want to do is create a single key value pair. And what is so this is the way it looks. We did a copy and paste before when we were looking at the dictionary. That's the top tax bracket. And what we're going to do is we're going to say that in 2022, it's going to be, well, we forgot to do what I said we should do at the beginning, which is to find out what value it is. So let's look back at, let's use the grep command, but not in the earlier video, we generated these output files. There's a parameters file that shows the values. So that helps us that in 2021, at least, which I believe was the first year they introduced this new top tax rate, the value of it was 30%, 0.30, okay? So that means 1 percentage point lower than that. Why is this current law policy? Because this is a run we did in the previous video with current law policy. So that means a 1 percentage point lower than 30% is 29%. So we don't talk in percents, we talk in decimal fractions. So this is it. So from your reading, you know that the key value pairs, the keys on the left of the colon, always have to be in quotes. So that's why this and this are in quotes. We can put the number just as a bare number. Okay, now I promised to make a mistake. So the mistake that I always get, it happens to me almost once a day, is I'm careless with the commas. You see, if we were going to do more here, we would have to separate the key value pairs by commas. So sometimes I forget and put a comma here without an additional one. So this is definitely going to generate an error. And what we'll do is clear the screen, and we will, we'll try to run this. Using the test input, okay? And we'll do this for 2022 because that's when the reform is taking place. And we'll use this file that we just wrote as the reform file. We're going to enter this. I get this all the time. So don't, again, the error is, it's like a trapeze artist working with a net underneath when they're learning a new trick on the trapeze. The way to read these things is, first of all, they reproduce the JSON file that it's trying to read. And it gives you the line numbers and the column numbers this way, because the error message, which is up here, is basically saying, well, this isn't valid JSON. And then it gives you the details, expecting the property name or the key enclosed in double quotes on line 3. So it says here, it's reading this and it says, well, wait a minute. If there's a comma here, I'm expecting double quotes, a new key. So you'll get the hang of this after a few error messages. As I said, I get them all the time. So we'll go back to the editor, we'll fix the error, save it, and then go back to the command prompt, up arrow key, and we should be home free. There we go. Now, what we're going to do is look at the parameter file. There it is. So instead of being 0.3, it's now that way. So it looks like things worked. We'll talk more about using this reform file in the final video in this playlist, which is next.